Welcome everyone. Really glad to see a lot of people here, and we have an amazing guest today, Andy Boots from Simplifier. Uh, we work with Andy already for more than a year in the short history of Revos, and really happy to have him here on the webinar. Without further ado, I would just like to introduce Andy, and maybe Andy, if you can just say a couple of words about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Great being here. Thanks for the invite, Rena. Yeah, my name is Andy Butz. I'm leading customer success management at Simplifier. I have been working for a couple of huge enterprises like Microsoft, Salesforce, the Expedia Group, and most of the time looking after customer success activities. So I have been building up quite a lot of customer success frameworks, so to say, and implemented new processes, which is one of the things that we will be talking about today. Glad being here.
Thanks, Andy. Really exciting to have you here, especially after all the discussions we had so far. It's a huge win for all the people who are interested in customer success and account management and all this kind of existing customer story. And the topic we would like to discuss today is like customer maturity models and customer success planning for software as a service products, which is like what you did already last many years. And just opening the conversation, maybe you can just highlight, what do you think, like, why is a customer maturity model and success planning in SaaS is so important, and why actually people do that?
Well, I would like to focus especially on one like wording in your question, which is software as a service, right? So with software as a service, at the end of the day, if your customer of that SaaS solution, no matter what exact SaaS solution we are talking about, will not be realizing business value or the return on investment after a certain period of time, you're running into big risk of maybe losing that customer, right? So they can usually after a year or something like that, just terminate the contract and moving to competition or using an on-prem solution or building something on their own or whatever. So adoption should be key of everything you're focusing on when talking to your customer. You have to make sure, and this is also why customer success was exploding over the last couple of years, you have to make sure that your customer is realizing business value and will therefore not only renew the contract, but also not terminate the contract when not realizing business value, right? Yeah.
No, that's very important, obviously, and one of the big benefits of software service solutions, right? Why people like paying a subscription instead of like buying the whole thing, is definitely also much less risk for a customer, and also this ongoing relationship with the vendor is definitely very important.
Yeah.
And what do you think, like, this maturity and the success planning is an essential part of this exercise?
Good question. So I would say quite often your customers do not really have a good enough understanding of how they are doing compared to like your best-in-class customers, so to say. They maybe sometimes don't know if they're really leveraging the full potential of the solution that you offer, if they're good on the benchmark side of things or not, and therefore not really having a good understanding of if they're on the right path of really realizing return on investment after a certain period of time. Therefore, it's important to plan their success or to help them plan their success. And there is a quote: if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? And this is basically it. So you have to help them understanding where they stand in terms of their maturity in different categories, basically, which we will be talking about later in more details. But maturity models, this is basically one way, I would say, to really put some kind of customer success plan together and help your customer grow and become more successful short term, but also putting the right strategies and processes and people. So governance is also a topic in place to also be successful long term.
That's a very nice quote. If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. This is, I think, a very good quote for this webinar for sure. And what do you think is like this? How does actually it work? Like, many people also in our environment, also in our communities, they are like asking and looking for some advices, like how does this how to move this customer relationship from this like direct approach to more like self-aware approach, how to make sure that the customers actually also understand that they need to additional efforts to implement the software to do the change. What do you think?
I think no one in private life, but also in business life, really likes being taught on things like, listen, I don't think you do a good job here. You suck in this area or in this area, whatever. No one really likes that, right? So the magic of success planning workshops, or however you do it, is really of simply being a good moderator, asking the right questions, being some kind of challenger, basically, and help the customer understand on their own. You are not telling them, but they understand that they have an issue or a gap here and there, which they should address. And then part of that success plan would basically be kind of an action plan of how to do that, how to get from the current situation to the desired state, so to say, right? And there are different models on how to do that, basically. I build up a couple of success frameworks or maturity models, so to say, in different organizations. Like one was basically a 5 different categories. One category about the business and go-to-market strategy of that customer, the customer experience, the technical readiness, and a couple of other things. And for each of these categories, we had statements, like it could have been quotes from the best-in-class customers, right? And the customer, a bigger group on the customer side, like 4-6 people or so, they basically had to rate that statement, saying that 1 would be, we disagree with that. This is not us, right? Or giving a 5 when they say, yes, this statement, this is really exactly what we have in place. So then at the end of the day, you would be having quite a good overview across all these statements, across all these categories, where you could easily identify the areas that you should focus on, because you're having the lowest total score, so to say. Mm-hmm. But I also build up other things, like also with a couple of different categories, change management, program management, sponsorship, whatever, where the customer had to rate their current maturity, also based on a description, basically. Mm-hmm. Set their existing maturity, and then also defining the level they would like to get to based on some other text and statements. So we can, after that assessment, we can work on an action plan on how to get there, basically. Right. So there is different models, and I think we should be able to provide some, like not examples, but kind of a template or something like that, to make it easier for organizations building up something like that on their own. Does this answer your question?
Oh yes. And I strongly believe that it will be a huge value for all people who are watching us. Really, maybe just have some handouts after the end of this webinar, and also would be able to use that. If you're watching this webinar live, or you're actually watching it after, you will get this access to this data and to this template. Because I think many people, especially when they just started with that, and I had a lot of conversation with sales leaders, with our customers on that. Many people are like pretty much doing it the first time, and I think this approach to take an inspirational and more like a coaching like an approach to discover this gaps in maturity is definitely very interesting. So but if I understood you correctly, you like through specific questions, you try to discover this white spots in self-perception of a customer. And how do you practically do it? You do it in a group, or you do it one-to-one? If you could give us an example.
So, I mean, first of all, there is always quite a lot of prep work to really come up with some kind of format that you can use, for workshops, for example, right? The very first thing that you would have to do before even talking to a customer is to take a step back and defining for yourself, or in an internal group, basically, of customer success managers, most likely, to define what your best-in-class customer would look like in different categories, like their governance, for example, their their program team, their technical skills, things like that, right? And then on the other side, also defining their customer of their nightmares, basically, right? what would a customer look like that is doing everything wrong, right? So you basically, by doing so, you basically already have the lowest level of ratings and the highest level of ratings, and everything in between are things that you can address, right? And how to do that with a customer, I would say it is always a good idea to not only doing this kind of workshop or meeting or whatever with just your main contact on the customer side, because the biggest benefit that I've seen in workshops like that really came from not really the success plan that we build up at the end, but all these conversations. So let's imagine you have like 5 people in a meeting room, and you ask one question about their current maturity in a certain area. And one person is saying, yes, this is exactly us, 100%, 5 points, right? But the next person is saying, no, I totally disagree. We totally suck in that area, and I can't confirm what you're saying, right? Which happened quite often to me, because people have different opinions, different perspectives. This person maybe doesn't know what the other person knows, and these kind of situations, right? So the best thing that can happen to you is that they start to interact, sharing their perspective, and maybe together identifying that, well, maybe 5-star is too high, 1-star is too low. So we would say that we are at a 3 scale or something like that, right? Yeah, this would be the best thing to do. And this also helps with that moderation piece. So I told you that it's important to not teach the customer, but just asking questions, for example, and they come to a situation where it basically clicks in their head, and they say, oh, okay, I think we could be doing something more. Like giving you an example, in one of the frameworks that I built up, there is a subcategory, so to say, about executive sponsorship, right? And the lowest rating would basically be there is no executive sponsor. The whole program is being managed by the program team or someone like that.
Executive sponsorship is like if the implementation project is also owned or sponsored by executive teams. This is correct?
Exactly. So the executive sponsor would be an executive person. It could be a VP, C-level, head of a department, something like that, who is basically sponsoring or driving the change forward. He or she is the face to the organization, to the team, saying, I'm here to support this project. We need to do that. We need to implement whatever because of ABC. This is an executive sponsor, right? So I said that lowest level would be there is no executive sponsor. Mid-level would be we have an executive sponsor, but this person is not really active. He or she was just raising the hand. Yes, I would like to be your executive sponsor, but actually not doing anything, right? And green would be we have a sponsor. He's active. He's showing up in meetings. He's sending out communications, blah, 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 right? So there are different levels that a customer could log in, like we are here, but we would like to get to a higher state. And then we can help the customer to, as I said, just get better at the current situation.
Interesting. Yeah. And in this case, was the understanding about that particular criteria shared among the participants, or was there significant differences?
In this example, we found out that the executive sponsor was not really sure on what his role as an executive sponsor should really look like. Like, what are the responsibilities that an executive sponsor should be having? This person thought that like raising the hand and saying, I'm your sponsor is enough, but there comes some responsibilities with that. So we basically helped that person with some best practices, with some templates of like what an email should look like when launching the project that is being sent out to employees should look like, stuff like that. And we're basically climbing the ladder from a mid state to a high or green situation, so to say.
Okay, that's very interesting. So you actually help them to navigate this change within the organization as a part of it.
Exactly. So the outcome, or think about a success planning workshop or a success plan approach to be separated in two different areas. First is you really have to do that assessment, for example, based on a maturity model that is then creating the foundation of a success plan. And the success plan needs to contain information on how to address that situation, how to get better, right? So you basically need to have some kind of action plan, like based on what we discussed in the workshop, these are the things you need to do in order to get better. But then also being mindful about one thing. Let's imagine that your customer is not really the customer of your dreams in most of the areas. They would most likely receive an action plan with, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 action points, right? So by just sending them that document, they would just get lost and not doing anything, basically, right? But it's also, and this is the second piece of the success plan, it's about taking their hand, help them prioritize and doing things together with them, presenting best practices, presenting templates, having conversations like on their behalf if they say okay, right? Doing things like that and working together with the customer.
Yeah. Oh, that's this is like this very also important part of this aspect of the whole change, right? In the senses, and how do you actually communicate it in the organization? Because if you say like there will be a workshop, who would be taking part of this workshop? Whom ideally should be there at this workshop? And then how do you manage this process after that?
Well, you need some kind of it may not be the right word, but let's call it some kind of pitch deck or so, right? You should be having at least one person on your customer side that you have like regular conversations with, right? So one contact person. So you of course need to tell them that you would propose do a success plan because you think that they have the potential achieving much more, being much more successful, things like that. Maybe also throwing in some information that what was it? 75% of digital transformation projects fail, which is coming from a PVC source, but not failing because of they built the solution in the wrong way, but because of topics that are coming back to change management, communication, wrong expectations, no commitment, wrong people involved, or the right people not being involved, things like that, right? So really trying to catch their interest. And then also saying that this would be a strategic workshop, really help them realizing much more value out of the solution they're using, and also proposing some people that you think should be attending that workshop. And I also had situations where out of a group of 5 people I wanted to have in workshops like that, I only had 2 because of availability and other reasons. So what we did in this example, which is surely not a best practice, but at the end of the day, it worked. I was running the workshop with these 2 people to have some kind of success plan ready. including an executive, executive summary or a one-pager that they can carry to their management, saying, listen, we have done all that prep work. Now we need your help to address these points, right? So we basically involve the wider audience after the workshop, which is not best practice, but sometimes you have to do things in a different way. Right?
Makes sense.
Maybe just one comment, because I didn't really talk about it in the beginning. We already talked a lot about maturity models and success planning, but at the end of the day, it's really important to me to underline that there is always additional things that CSMs can do with their customers, right? It's not about activities, doing as much as possible with your customer, doing 10 calls a day or something like that. It's less about activities. Everything should be about impact. So if you have one meeting a day and this meeting is changing the world for your customer, I personally would always prefer doing one meeting rather than doing 20 and not achieving anything, right? So what is the benefit of doing something like success planning or running your customer through a maturity model and planning for their long-term and sustainable success, I would say? For me, one is that an approach like this can help you to deepen the relationship with your customer, like earning that trusted advisor stamp, because it is nothing that you can introduce yourself as. You really have to earn that status of being called a trusted advisor, right? And this helps with that. It will also help you to connect with additional senior stakeholders that you've never been speaking with before. You will be having the deepest or highest, so to say, transparency for your customer in regards to their current challenges, potential blockers, company plans, goals, structures, how are they being organized, things like that, all things that can help you basically. And the last thing that I would like to point out is this will also help you getting commitment from your customer, not just using the solution as a nice to have thing, but really transforming it into a must-have SaaS product.
Which is extremely important nowadays when people are cost-cutting, layoffs, do more with less kind of approach, and definitely very, very important. Yeah, sure. This is amazing. This is really amazing stuff, Andy. Thank you very much. It's like, if I understood correctly, the maturity model is more like a blueprint where you can establish a development plan for individual customers, right?
Exactly.
And what would you then do? Like, okay, we have a plan, we have, 50, 60 action items. How do you, like, what happens after that? And what kind of infrastructure or technical abilities you need to have to really scalably work with this information later?
Great question. I think the success plan, including a maturity model, is not the only, or the full solution, right? It is not the only thing that is needed in order to really make your customer truly successful in all aspects. It's one of the most important ones, but when talking to the customer success network, like global network, globally, CSMs that I know, and so on and so forth, they always talk about their wish or their need of moving from being a reactive customer success manager to a proactive customer success manager. Like, I don't want my customer to call me when their production environment is down, or when they sending me an email when they decided to churn. I would like to see these things upfront, like identifying potential risks of them maybe churning their contract, or them not being happy because of signs. I don't know, right? So the other aspect of what we just talked about would really be some kind of customer health system, dashboard, score, you name it, some kind of system that helps you getting a good overview of your customers' overall health, again, in different categories that come up with one score, basically, which you in the future can also link to certain, I don't know, thresholds or so. I remember a comment when I was working for LinkedIn, not giving exact details, but some kind of comment saying that when the customer health score of a certain customer is at level whatever, they are 1.5 times more likely of jumping to the next contract size, something like that, right?
Yeah.
The customer health score would be a second category of essential things to have in customer success management.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah. And do you use do you have a customer health right now in Simplifier? And what are the, maybe if you can give some typical categories which people are using in customer health?
Well, we didn't have a customer health score. We call it a customer health index like 1.5 years ago. Now we have, because RevHouse offers a great solution to do so, right? So yes, we do have customer health score, which we use for all of our customers. We use it for internal purposes, basically. What we are tracking against, or what criteria that we are leveraging, basically consists of 5 different categories. We first of all look after product adoption. So this is like license utilization, for example, right? And logins as another example. We are also looking after usage. So what is the customer doing? Are they using all the features? Are they using it in a ratio that is really at the level of a best in class customer, so to say? Maybe they are not using like in simplifier terms modules, or not leveraging the connectors we offer, things like that, right? Then we talk about the commercial side of things, like how long till renewal, since when is a customer a customer? Is it still a fairly fresh customer, still being in the onboarding phase, for example? Is it a long-term customer having settled processes, and so on? We are also taking care, or monitoring the relationship health. How many people are we talking to? Right. What about these people's seniority, about these people's mood across our organization? Recent NPS feedback, for example. And then lastly, it's what we call the CSM sentiment, the CSM pulse, basically. Like you sometimes you may have situations where all the numbers look pretty good, but you know that the organization is facing, so the organization of your customer is facing a hard time. They may have some layoffs or, I don't know, restructuring going on. You know that you will be losing your main contact. The new person to come in is not a big fan of the solution, stuff like that, right? So there need to be some space to adjust the values. So a customer that, by only looking after the numbers itself, like licenses and so on and so forth, would be green with flowers, right? But at the end of the day, you have to rebalance it a little bit with the things that you know about your customers. So in total, we have I think 35 different criteria that at the end of the day give you a very good understanding of the customer's overall health, right? So you also have a chance to, let's say, I don't know, if a customer is not having that much licenses, this would result in a lower score. But if with these licenses, they are doing all the good things, it may get back to balance a little bit.
Yeah. No, right? Makes sense.
Quite a long answer.
No, that's very interesting. I think many people, for us as a RevHouse, it was one of the also most interesting questions people ask us about the customer health index and how to build that. What other people are doing. So it's always very interesting for our community to hear about that. And what would you say, what is if you can take a step back, and what is the business impact of this activities like customer health scoring, customer success planning, customer maturity? What do you see that as top line, bottom line impact of these activities?
Organizations need to understand, especially these organizations that are just starting to build up customer success, hiring first CSMs and so on, that things like this, everything we just talked about, is really, it's not a sprint. It needs time. It's a marathon, right? So you have to invest. You have to take a step back, implementing all these things, readjusting the scores. For example, readjusting the weightings just to see if the score that you're seeing is correct, if it feels right. This all needs time. You will not be having huge successes in the first 6 months or something like that, because first of all, you need to be close enough to your customer to really get their commitment doing a workshop like this. You need to build up the whole framework from scratch, basically. This also needs time. And then for the scores, so for the customer health score, you also need to understand how you can best leverage these information, because you will be seeing loads of interesting information, not by looking after the individual numbers, like number of licenses, for example, but in combination with other scores. There is quite a lot of power that is being brought onto your screen, right? And as soon as you start to really being able to read in between the lines, or Ref helping me reading between the lines by bringing all these different information together and the weightings and so on and so forth, we can really use these information to not just having a conversation with the customer, but having the right conversation, talking about the right things, the things that really matter, the things that can make a difference, biggest pain points, things that your customer maybe doesn't even know that you're aware of, things like that, right? And in combination with the success planning workshop, which is really the strategical side of things, while the customer health score is more on, I would say, operational, but also a little bit strategic. By combining these two things, this is really the power that you have to have in your team and toolkit is the word, I think, to really make sure that at the end of the day, after a certain period of time, you will be having much more easy to forecast growth with your customer, and also being much more able to really predict churn or prevent possible churn, so to say, right? Because at the end of the day, customer success management is all about, there are some other things as well, making a customer happy, of course, right? But then it's about growing the customer in an indirect way, because most of the time we are not sales reps, but customer success managers, and prevent churn. This is the two biggest benefits for the own organization that CSMs bring to the table. And both things will help you achieving that.
Absolutely, yes. No, that's a very, 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 very good conclusion, and it was really, I think, if we started with like, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I think like you have to plan to success, right? Otherwise, it just makes so much sense what you're saying, that this a combination is really a must-have for every organization. And was great talk. Thank you very much, Andy, for your insights. We're already slightly over the time, but it was amazing conversation. Thank you again once more for it, and looking forward to speaking to you soon then.
Thanks for having me. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.